To our town hall, and we want to focus right now on Florida. We know there are very close ties between our two states. Think of all the snowbirds that Mary Alice mentioned earlier. Also, just a lot of people from here make trips down to the Sunshine State.
Yeah, that's a hot spot right now with a big jump in coronavirus cases there. Governor Cuomo has said that he's talking with other Northeast governors about possibly putting in a mandatory quarantine for people who return from Florida. And we asked the lieutenant governor about that today.
I am recommending that people do get tested. We're talking about snowbirds. They're part-time Florida residents. They come up here in the summer and they're starting to arrive now. So when I was listening to our control room call, where I have representatives from all 5 counties of Western New York, the cases that started popping up had one thing in common. They'd all been in Florida. And Florida is a serious hot spot, and they're coming up to our more rural counties that up until now had been pretty immune from this. And that would be a huge concern to us as we talk about all the extraordinary measures we took into place to get hospital capacity ready and PPE and protective equipment. We don't want to have to go back and revisit that because people coming from other states now are bringing the virus with them. So they should get tested. Their family members should get tested.
Joining us now is Katie Jeffries, who is a reporter with our sister station, First Coast News, down in Jacksonville. Katie, thanks so much for your time.
Hey, happy to be here.
Let me ask you first of all about this executive order from Governor DeSantis' office there in Florida, requiring people from here in New York to self-quarantine for 14 days if going down there. We've tried for about a week now to find out if this applies to all of New York State or just downstate, the New York City area. And to be honest, the governor's office just won't respond to us. So for people from here who are visiting Florida, even if they're being told to quarantine, are they actually doing that? I mean, what are you seeing on the ground?
Well, first, I would say, to the best of our knowledge, it is anyone from the entire state of New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. So to the best of our knowledge, it does encompass anyone from that entire state. Now, what happens, because we've been out to that checkpoint, is you're stopped, you're kind of pulled over into a truck weigh station, essentially, and they're just asking where you're from and where you're going. So if you say you're from New York, then you'll be pulled over to a second area where, from what we understand, you're going to be given pamphlets about self-quarantining. But after that, it doesn't seem like anybody really follows up with people because to the best of our knowledge, that's kind of it. They tell you to self-quarantine for 14 days, but there's really not a lot of follow-up with that after you proceed on through.
The governor here in New York, Andrew Cuomo, has said that he may institute his own quarantine rule for people from Florida who come here, kind of reversing it, because as you know, sadly, the number of cases in Florida is increasing dramatically. If we look at yesterday, about 5 times as many new cases in your state compared to here in New York. How do you assess where Florida is right now in your epidemic? Because, of course, people here in our region like to travel down there. They have family there.
Well, we definitely are seeing an increase. We're seeing an increase in cases. We're seeing an increase in testing, but we're also seeing an increase in that important number of percent positive. What we've been hearing from officials and from the governor's office is that, especially with this recent wave of new cases, it's mostly within the younger generation. The median age for Jacksonville is around 29 years old, testing positive at this point. And they said that even though we are seeing higher numbers, we're not seeing a dramatic increase in hospitalizations or ICU beds being needed, because even though it's younger people catching this, it seems like either they're asymptomatic or they're not getting severe cases. Of course, the concern then is who it could be spread to, but we are seeing a pretty dramatic rise. We keep seeing day after day of records amount of cases. And I mean, just outside of our studio, there is a testing site at the Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium. And I tell you what, it's about a 3-hour wait to be able to get tested.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Let me end by asking you about the response from Floridians. Here in New York, mask wearing has sort of become second nature. It's required here by law. Are people in Florida wearing masks, and are they taking this seriously as the epidemic worsens there? How are they reacting?
I hate to say it, but you're not going to see a lot of mask wearing, at least not in the Jacksonville area. I'd say it's a maybe 50-50, if that, because our mayor has said that he does not want to make a public mandate for people to wear the masks, because he said essentially there would be no punishment for people who are not wearing the masks. So it would just be a drain on law enforcement. And he's just asking people to make the best decisions. The governor and the mayor are encouraging people to wear masks. But if you go out and about, I mean, to the grocery store, like I said, it maybe 50% of people are wearing masks at this point. With more people coming back testing positive, you are starting to see at least more people kind of paying attention to it, I think, than before, especially now that it's in a younger demographic. You're seeing more people mentioning it on social media that they know someone who's tested positive. But still, it's just one of those issues where some people just do not want to wear the mask. They have kind of politicized that issue a little bit down here. So you don't see a ton of mask wearing. Again, it may be 50-50.
Katie Jeffries joining us from Florida. A lot of people here in our region have loved ones down there or maybe second homes in Florida, spend a lot of time there, and of course care a lot about what's happening. Thank you very much, Katie, for joining us this evening.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah, really good insight, Mary Allison. I think kind of a warning to everybody. Again, we have this close connection between these two states, and that is the epicenter of the epidemic in this country right now.
Yeah, it's shocking and kind of disappointing to hear that their attitude is a little more, well, or a lot more cavalier down there. You know, everyone up in New York has been so vigilant and wanting to do what they could, you know, for their neighbor, even though it's not necessarily, you know, putting them at highest risk, but for senior citizens and, you know, anyone who's vulnerable. I don't know, just a different mentality, different culture, I guess.
We'll see if those attitudes change as they keep seeing more cases.
Good point.